So, as you've noticed, there is no episode of the podcast this week again. You can blame Dimitri for that, for being extremely unreliable. But I figured I had to put something out, or I didn't have to. I figured I should put something out today, and it's been a while since I did one of these. So I decided that I was just going to talk about some of the stuff that's been going on with Disney and Marvel the past couple days. And there's been a lot of stuff. It's been kind of like day after day we get some new story or development, Disney or Marvel related. And I guess it all started with this book that Bob Iger put out. It's not like I read the book. I'm not going to buy the book. Who cares about the book? But it had a lot of stuff, some stuff about how I guess he pushed forward Black Panther and Captain Marvel, whatever. And the thing that really sticks out is he was talking about the deal with George Lucas, buying Star Wars, $4 billion or whatever. And he was talking about how after this deal, George Lucas kind of felt betrayed and disappointed because Disney didn't use the treatments that he had made for 7, 8, and 9. They didn't have to use them completely. I'm sure they could have adapted them or taken elements from them, but it seems like they just completely ignored them, and he felt betrayed by that, which is something we kind of always knew. We kind of always knew that Lucas was not happy with the way the sequel trilogy was happened, and with Disney in particular. I know in one interview he referred to Disney as white slavers, and he referred to selling Star Wars as a divorce. And now he's like making movies that he's not going to show to anybody. So, this isn't like new information, but just the takeaway from this is it seems really weird that Bob Iger would put this in his book. I don't understand that. Especially with the shape Star Wars is in right now, and how a lot of the fans are really unhappy with the way things have been going. This just kind of seems like fuel on the fire, adding fuel to the fire. And does he think he's on the right side of this? This doesn't make him look good. Is it some like weird gloating thing, like, we pissed off Lucas, we screwed him over good? I don't understand why they would put this in. It's probably just like it probably just shows the disconnect that he has with what he's doing and what's going on, because he's not in charge of Star Wars. He's as long as Star Wars is making money, I'm sure he's cool with everything that's going on. And then another thing that happened after that, maybe like a day or two after that, it was announced that Kevin Feige, who has been producing the MCU, spearheading that, he's been in charge for a while. Many would say he's done a very good job with it. Endgame was extremely successful, and so have a lot of the MCU movies. It was announced that Kevin Feige would be producing a Star Wars movie with Kathleen Kennedy, which isn't all that surprising either. Again, Kevin Feige has been very successful at, doing what he's doing, and Star Wars and Lucasfilm, they definitely want to emulate the success that the MCU has had. I feel like a lot of people haven't been too happy with the way Kathleen Kennedy has handled the Star Wars franchise. Now, I'm not saying that Kevin Feige is just going to be taken over from Kathleen Kennedy, although he could. I'm sure he has someone on his team that he's setting up to be like his protege. Then this person could handle the MCU if he were to step back a little bit. So maybe it wouldn't be the most crazy thing, but it's not anything like that right now. All we really have is he's producing a movie with Kathleen Kennedy, and we don't know anything about this movie. We don't know what it is yet. for all we know, it could be related to some of the other movies that have already been somewhat announced. You know, like the Rian Johnson trilogy or the Benioff and Weiss trilogy. Maybe he's producing one of those movies, or an entry in one of those movies, the third one or something. I don't know. We still don't really know how far along any of those movies are. It's still probably going to be a while till we start to see a new Star Wars movie. Probably like 2020, at least 2021. I highly doubt we're going to get a Star Wars movie next year. I feel like if we were, it would to be announced. So maybe we get a Star Wars movie late 2021, but it's very possible we don't see another Star Wars movie until 2022. And then there's more stuff. Like a lot of this stuff I don't really care about, but I just feel like I need to mention it. Sony and Marvel made up, and they're back together, I guess, if it's like a relationship. I guess Sony agreed to a 25% stake instead of Marvel's original ask of a 50%, which 25% still seems a little high, but whatever. And they are going to make a third Spider-Man movie, and Spider-Man is going to be in another MCU movie besides that. This deal is, you know, I feel like it's still early on in this deal. We don't know a lot of the specifics about what's going on. We don't know how this could impact Venom, because after the deal, plans could have already been implemented in having Peter Parker, Tom Holland show up in the Venom sequel, or Madam Web, which I guess was announced. I don't know what the hell that is. You know, Sony's gonna have a lot more obscure movies popping up. I mean, you know, you got Morbius. I kind of know who that is. You know, he's a vampire, I think, but Madam Web, no clue. So, yeah, I guess this is okay. I still kind of wish that Sony had just stick to themselves. I know everyone was clamoring for this to continue. It's just, I don't know. I did like Venom a lot. I know a lot of people didn't. And I'm not a huge fan of the Tom Holland MCU movies. I thought he would have been a good fit if he would have shown up in Venom 2, though. So, I don't know, we'll see what happens. Hopefully this does mean some crossover potential with the Sony verse and the MCU. I feel like that would be something Marvel would consider, especially given the success of Venom, even though it didn't do well critically all around the board. It was a commercial success, which is all that really matters. It makes money. I mean, they made 7 Transformers movies, so that's all that really counts, is money. Yeah, I feel like Marvel had bigger plans for Spider-Man besides the third Spider-Man movie, which I saw like a rumor, which I don't know is true, but whatever. The rumor is that they were looking to have the Captain Marvel actress Brie Larson, to have her be in the new Star Wars, one of the new Star Wars movies, because I suppose Disney was losing faith in that character, because Disney's plan was to have Captain Marvel and Spider-Man team up in another movie, and I guess that would make Captain Marvel more likable, pairing her up with Spider-Man, because I guess some people didn't connect with Captain Marvel that much, even though the movie itself did very well. I feel like maybe not a lot of people, but there were definitely some people who didn't really, connect with that character. So, maybe that was important to them, getting Spider-Man back for potentially a Captain Marvel 2. Which that would make sense. And now, that's just a rumor. It might not be true at all. which I'm kind of skeptical if it's true even, but I guess the point that I'm making is I feel like Marvel losing Spider-Man originally in this deal, it affected them more than just not having a Homecoming 3. I feel like they did have a movie in mind within the MCU that Spider-Man was going to be a part of, and them losing Spider-Man for that movie hurts them more than not having a Spider-Man 3 with John Watts. Because again, Spider-Man 3, it is going to be a Sony movie. It's not really going to be a Disney Marvel movie, even though it is going to exist in the MCU. It's confusing. And there are other possibilities of movies that we could see Spider-Man in. I don't think we're going to see him in anything that's been announced, so he's not going to be. I don't think he's going to be in Doctor Strange 2 or The Eternals, Shang-Chi, Blade. There's Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Maybe you see that. You're going to have Thor, the Guardian, Spider-Man. That's a nice little team up there. Maybe Black Panther 2. That would seem kind of random, but then Scarlet Witch being in Doctor Strange 2 seems kind of random to me, so I guess random's fine. What else? What I feel like would be the most obvious here, which I would hope this is what they're doing. I feel like you have Spider-Man in the new Fantastic Four movie. I feel like that would be a great way to introduce the Fantastic Four and set them up, and maybe ease some people's concerns about another Fantastic Four movie. Because we've had 4 Fantastic Four movies that haven't been that good, and I feel like Spider-Man being in a Fantastic Four movie, that would ease our concerns a little bit and sell tickets, because you see Spider-Man and Fantastic Four, kind of like the OG Marvel characters in a movie together. That would really get people excited. And you could introduce Spider-Man in the X-Men. That would have introduce the X-Men and have Spider-Man in the X-Men movie. That could have the same effect, but I feel like kind of lessened if it wasn't Fantastic Four. Because in the comics too, Spider-Man does have a history of wanting to join the Fantastic Four and them shutting him down because he's Spider-Man. Spider-Man's Peter Parker is kind of like the Charlie Brown of the Marvel Universe, almost in a way. Yeah. And yeah, that's about it of all the stuff going on. I feel like there was something else that was kinda connected. I don't know, but I don't know. I feel like there's something I'm forgetting, because there was a lot of stuff. But I guess I wanted to get into like the second half of this, so to speak. I talk about all this stuff, and I kind of don't really care. Like, I'm kind of done with the MCU and with Star Wars, and here's why. I don't plan on seeing another MCU movie in theaters for a long time, honestly. And Rise of Skywalker is also going to be the last Star Wars movie I see in theaters for the foreseeable future. And it really has nothing to do with quality of movies, because I have enjoyed the Star Wars movies. I did like them, and I have enjoyed the MCU, even though I don't think they're as great as other people say they are. But for me, it's just become obvious that these movies are an ongoing, never-ending thing, and that's just not... It seems pointless to me. Honestly, stuff has to end. If a story doesn't end, there's no point to the story. The story can't just go on forever. Endgame has no meaning. Endgame loses all its meaning as soon as they announce the next 10 movies they're making, you know. They just killed off Black Widow, and the very next MCU movie is a standalone Black Widow movie. That has no impact. There's already rumors about Robert Downey Jr. coming back as Iron Man in like the Iron Heart or whatever, some character they introduce. I don't know. It's you know, it has no meaning, it has no significance. This stuff has to end. If this is just going to continue on until the end of time, till the world ends, then there's no point to it really. It's just going. It's like a run-on sentence. You know, you can't have a run-on sentence when you're talking or when you're writing in a paragraph, because it doesn't end, it loses its meaning, and it's just nonsense. So that's kind of all this is. It's just stuff happening. And you know, there are endings, but there aren't an end. Like when you're writing a paragraph, there are periods. You know, the period ends the sentence. You know, you'll do the indentation, the tab, and that'll start a new paragraph. But you can't just keep on writing. You gotta stop writing eventually. So they gotta stop making these eventually. It doesn't seem like they're ever gonna stop, because why would they stop? Avengers made $3 billion. So why would they stop? So they're not stopping, so I'm just gonna stop. I can just end it at Endgame, because Endgame was a very good... Endgame seemed like a very good finale. You know, it didn't really set up anything in the future. There was no big cliffhangers or anything. I feel like I'm fine watching Endgame and never seeing another MCU movie. Because I don't want to meet these new characters. Like, I don't care about the Eternals. I don't care about Shang-Chi or Blade or Moon Knight or She-Hulk or any of these people that are shoving down my throat. I don't care about these characters. I care about the characters who were in Endgame. And you know, I say I'm not going to watch another MCU movie. They haven't had anything announced that I'm really at all interested in seeing. I might end up seeing Guardians of the Galaxy 3. We'll see how that ends up looking. I got my reservations about Thor: Love and Thunder. I'm still not sold on that yet, even though I did like Thor Ragnarok a lot. I'm not sold in that movie yet. No interest in Eternals, no interest in Black Widow, Shang-Chi, no interest in Doctor Strange 2, even really, you know, even though I did like the first Doctor Strange movie. There are a couple of the TV shows that I will check out at some point. Though that's another thing they announce, or rumors. There's rumors of a Ant-Man TV show, that they scrapped Ant-Man 3 and they're turning Ant-Man 3 into a TV show. So I guess they want to be more diverse in their movies, so they're kind of shuffling characters like Ant-Man and Hawkeye onto the TV world to pad their stats, so to speak, a little bit with quantity of stuff within Disney Plus and the streaming service, TV shows. So I like the Ant-Man character a lot. I like the first two Ant-Man movies a lot. So I'm definitely going to see the Ant-Man TV show. And I'd also like to check out the Hawkeye TV show. No interest in WandaVision, She-Hulk, Mrs. Marvel, Moon Knight. Not really all that interested in the Falcon and Winter Soldier thing. I never really connected to those two characters. Don't really care about them at all. I might check out the Loki TV show. I'm curious to some of the stuff they might do with this. If they could involve Chris Hemsworth in some way, that could be good. See who they could get from this, how it could matter to the overall story. But you know, even with even with all that, they're still characters that I already knew. You know, I already liked Hawkeye, I already liked Ant-Man. I'm not investing in some new people, some new story. So what I figured I would do is just wait until a lot of this stuff happened. I mean, until a lot of this stuff comes out on the Disney Plus, and then buy Disney Plus for a month, and then like binge these 3 or 4 TV shows in that month, and then get rid of that month, save money. You know, I'm not going to keep it for a year and have this stuff sprinkled slowly out to me and kind of lose money in a way, because there is one thing that there is another thing on Disney Plus, shifting gears a little bit, that I also really do want to check out, which is the Obi-Wan TV show. I do want to check out the Obi-Wan TV show also. I'm looking forward to that. I'm very glad that they're bringing Ewan McGregor back. Crossing my fingers that they'll bring Joel Edgerton back to play Uncle Owen. There's been a lot of talk about should Darth Vader show up in this. I would say no. I would be opposed to Obi-Wan Kenobi leaving Tatooine, and I would hope that Obi-Wan Kenobi stays on Tatooine in this movie, and it really wouldn't work for Darth Vader to show up on Tatooine and like fight Obi-Wan Kenobi and then leave and forget he's there or something. That would feel weird. And you can't have Darth Maul show up in... I mean, you could have Darth Maul show up in the Obi-Wan TV show, but that would really conflict with some of his storyline in Rebels. When we finally meet Darth Maul in Rebels, he's been looking for Obi-Wan Kenobi for a long time. He didn't know where Obi-Wan Kenobi is. He finally figured out he's on Tatooine. He leaves. He has the epic showdown which lasts 30 seconds, and then he dies. Spoiler alert. So I am looking forward to the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie. TV show. I'm not really looking forward to Mandalorian. I don't really care. I might check out Cassian Andor. Don't really care either that much. Never watched the Clone Wars, so don't really care that they're coming out with a new season of that. And like I'd also mentioned, I'm also done with Star Wars movies in general too. With a lot of Star Wars movies and Star Wars TV shows. Because it's the same thing with Marvel. It has to end. If it doesn't end, there's no meaning, and it's just going to be me saying the same stuff over and over again. So I'm just going to watch Episode 9, and I hope Episode 9 will be a finale, will be somewhat of an ending, at least close off the Skywalker saga. Then I can put that to the rest, and move on. Because I have enjoyed Star Wars, but it's almost annoying to like Star Wars, because Star Wars fans are the worst, and now everybody's talking about Star Wars, and I miss the days where no one talked about Star Wars. I miss the days where Star Wars was a thing you could get bullied for liking, and that seems weird, but it bothers me how every single YouTuber out there is talking about Star Wars and making Star Wars predictions and breaking down Star Wars trailers, and it's just tedious, and there's so much awfulness in the Star Wars fandom, so to speak. I don't know why I said so to speak. Fandom is a fitting word. But there's a lot of awfulness in the Star Wars community. I don't really understand where it comes from, but whatever. And I have my own problems with how the Star Wars trilogy has been handled. But I just got other things that I could be doing, other things I could be thinking about or worried about. I still gotta play Half-Life 1 sometime. But I just can't bring myself to care for that much longer about the MCU or Star Wars. And I'm still bitter that Disney bought Fox. I'm still kind of in mourning about the Fox X-Men stuff ending, because I did like those movies so much. Logan was great, Days of Future Past was great, X2, Deadpool. It's like a dagger in my heart that franchise movies ending. You know, I mean, it did have some movies that weren't so great. Dark Phoenix, Origins Wolverine, Apocalypse a little bit. I like Apocalypse a little bit more than other people like Apocalypse, but to each their own. So it's, you know, it's kind of sad that that stuff's ending, and now and now now Marvel is gonna come. And now Marvel is gonna come along and reboot the X-Men. This is gonna kind of be the same thing that happened with Spider-Man, and I'm not really, I'm not really all for that. There is some talk about casting rumors and what they're doing. They're looking for a female. They're looking to have a female Wolverine. Which, please, if you do female Wolverine, just do X-23. It seems almost completely pointless to do like female Wolverine and it not be X-23. It just seems weird. And you know, if they do X-23, that is gonna make me more sad, because it should be Daphne Keane. She did such a good job in Logan, and I really wish James Mangold would be able to make his X-23 movie like he wanted to do after making Logan. And there's also talk about Professor X and Magneto being casted as people of color, which, I mean, I suppose it's fine. There's kind of some problems with that. More specifically with Magneto, I feel like Magneto's origin is very importantly tied up to the Holocaust and him, you know, being a Jewish victim of the Holocaust. I feel like that's very significant to his character. And also, I would hope that they're going to explore Magneto being the father of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. I'd be really disappointed if they didn't explore that in the MCU. So it kind of doesn't really work making Magneto a person of color. I mean, you know, people have said like, oh, you know, the Holocaust was so long ago, he would be 100 years old. And I also say, all you gotta do is say mutants age slower, you know. Wolverine ages slower. Why couldn't Magneto age a little bit slower than everyone else? And then people also say like, oh, you know, you could make him the victim of a different atrocity or genocide. But I feel like it being the Holocaust specifically is very significant to his character, because that is, you know, that is literally humanity at its worst, and he was witness to that, and all he's really trying to do is have it not happen again. And it also kind of doesn't work, or at least in my opinion, it kind of doesn't work to have Professor X be a person of color either. I mean, they could do it, and it would be completely fine, but just the way that I would hope they handle the character, see, how I would want them to handle the character is I would want them to get into kind of the more morally gray side of Professor X, because we see him in those X-Men movies. He's always playing chess with Magneto, you know, his mortal enemy, and he's drinking tea and playing chess with him like nothing's going on. And that whole chess, you know, imagery dealing with pawns, I feel like it would be nice to explore the kind of like the sketchier, shadier, kind of like asshole side of Professor X. You know, he's always been a there's a spider over there. Professor X has always been, you know, kind of a symbol of like privilege almost. I mean, he's living in this rich mansion. So I mean, if you were to take the character of Professor X and explore kind of the darker side of him, the more asshole, more sketchy, you know, the entitled, hypocritical Professor X, if you were to make the character less of a good guy, like I would hope they would, I would hope they go a little bit more shady with the character and kind of exploring, you know, is he kind of really just using these students and the X-Men as just pawns in his weird little game he's got going on with Magneto? If they were going to portray Professor X more negatively, I feel like casting him as a person of color would almost be counterproductive. I mean, you could do it and it could work. I just feel like that sends a mixed message. If you're finally, if you're recasting the person as a person of color, but then portraying him more negatively than he was portrayed when he was not a person of color. And I would also hope that Professor X and Magneto wouldn't be the focus of the upcoming X-Men movies, because they don't have to be the focus. I feel like it's almost a waste for them to be the focus of these movies. I really wasn't going to go into this. I don't know how it got here, but I almost planned for this to be its own whole separate video. But I guess the main problem, really, that I have with recasting them as people of color, because I feel like it does a disservice to the characters, to the already established X-Men characters who are people of color. Because there are a lot of people of color, there are already a lot of diverse members of the X-Men in comics. And instead of just doing, I guess, the lazy approach for diversity and recasting someone as a person of color, use those more obscure characters that are people of color and put them in the limelight, I suppose. Put them front and center. Make the movie about them. You can have Professor X and Magneto kind of be in the background. They can be, manipulating things a little bit more shady, manipulative. And they don't have to be your main characters. And because we know now with the MCU has no problem introducing obscure characters. I mean, they made Guardians of the Galaxy work, they made Captain Marvel work, they made Black Panther work. We have fans of the MCU have no problem with diversity or obscure characters. They're going to make Shang-Chi, they're going to make Eternals. No one's heard about these characters, but probably a lot of people are going to see them, and it's going to make a lot of money, and people are going to like these characters. So they don't have to worry about having more obscure X-Men. You don't need an X-Men movie with Beast and Cyclops and Storm and Jean Grey, because we already had those. Let's introduce new characters that we haven't seen, and let's explore those more. Because all you really gotta do to sell an X-Men movie is just have someone play Magneto, someone play Professor X, someone play Wolverine. You got those three, you fill it with 6 or 7 other younger mutants who can make up the X-Men team, and you got your movie. Because all you really need for X-Men, all you need to sell X-Men is Wolverine. I mean, they sold like 14 X-Men movies with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. So clearly all you need is just someone on your poster as Wolverine. So yeah. That's how I would hope they would do it, at least. But they're probably not. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing more recasting or changing races. Is there like a word for it? Race? I don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of this. Like, they'll make Cyclops an Asian guy, or they'll make whatever. And the main reason I feel like they're doing this is just to avoid comparisons to previous X-Men, because the previous X-Men actors, because the biggest disadvantage they have when approaching the X-Men is these characters have had a lot of really good portrayals by really good actors. Like, you look at, you're saying, oh, you're gonna recast Magneto. You gotta have someone who's gonna fill the shoes left by not just Ian McKellen, but also Michael Fassbender, two really good actors who gave really good performances as Magneto. So you gotta, MCU has to now step up to that, deal with that legacy, deal with the legacy of Patrick Stewart and James McAvoy playing Professor X, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, so on. And so I feel like what they're doing, which is almost the simplest thing, is they're shifting the conversation. If you cast Denzel Washington or whoever as Magneto, the conversation is no longer comparing, oh, is he as good as Michael Fassbender? Is he as good as Ian McKellen? That's not the conversation anymore. Now the conversation is, oh, we got a person of color playing Magneto. So it's shifting focus almost, which is kind of, in a way, I'll admit, it's kind of really smart on Disney to do this. You know, I'm not criticizing them. I just think it would work better for story and how they would handle the movie in general, but yeah. So it's really not all that surprising, because they really want to do whatever they can to divert comparisons away from the previous X-Men stuff, because while we all love, I mean, not we, while the masses love to shit on the Fox X-Men movies because of their ups and downs, they had some very high highs. You know, I mentioned Logan was really good. Days of Future Past was really good. And Days of Future Past, it had both versions. You know, Days of Future Past had two different actors, both killing it as Magneto and Professor X. You know, you had McAvoy, Fassbender, McKellen, Stewart, all doing great as Magneto and Professor X in one movie. And you know, how do you top that? How do you top Hugh Jackman as Wolverine? How do you top Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool? They're really trying not to. You know, there's the rumors of them trying to figure out just how they can bring Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool into the MCU, or you know, how they're going to work that, or maybe they'll just continue to keep him separate. Because I feel like even maybe they realize that, like, that's the one character they couldn't recast. I feel like recasting Deadpool at this point the fans would just crucify them for that. You know, you gotta keep Ryan Reynolds on that. He made that role. But yeah, I talked a lot in this video about things coming to an end, how things need to end for them to matter. So it's time for me to put my money where my mouth is. So I'm going to be ending this video, and I will see you guys next time.